Will Lavender. I am an author of two novels, two psychological thrillers, Obedience and Dominance. Obedience was a New York Times bestseller. It sold in 15 territories. It's been optioned 10 times to TV and movies. Um, it's interesting because I've always been seen as a plot guy, a concept guy. I'm always interested, have always been interested, both in my writing and reading, in high concept stories. The mentee that was chosen for me at the Carnegie Center in 2022 was not at the beginning was not like that at all, and it's so interesting that we have such a great working relationship together, because I think we come at fiction from two totally opposite ends of the spectrum. Dan Billings is my mentee. It's actually the second term I've worked with Dan. We began in 2022 and we're continuing now to work together. When Dan first came to me in 22, his goals were very simple. He basically wanted to finish a manuscript. That's what he told me in our first meeting, in the first goal meeting for the Author Academy. He said, I just want to finish a book. I want to see if I can do it. And so we started work. He had the bare bones of a project at that time, and the project was very straightforward. It was very character driven, very slice of lifey. But I could see even in that project that Dan had talent. And as much as talent, Dan is an incredibly hard worker. He has used everything that the Author Academy offers. He uses the Carnegie Center weekly, and he has attended several classes to help his writing, and it has really benefited him in this process. We worked through 2022 together, and he re-upped late in the term, which was great because I was really eager to continue working with him. I saw so much promise in what he was doing. But late in the term, he came to me and he said he thought he was interested in working on a different project. And I was all for that because I thought he had exhausted that first book in some ways. I wanted to see if he could branch out a little bit and try something new. So in the summer of last year, he started to do that. And when we met up again at the beginning of the Author Academy for this term, he showed me what he'd been working on. I was blown away by it. It is unlike anything that I really have ever read. I've told Dan this several times. It is a cross between a high concept science fiction religious novel, but none of those terms really explain what this book is. The way he expanded his mind, the way he dove into his creativity, and how funny the book is at times was a shock to me. And immediately when I saw it, I really wanted Dan to see this through. He's continuing now as we speak. I met with him last week. He is, I would say, a third of the way through. It is a very unusual project, and because of that, it makes it very complicated in how he has to build it. It's very much like building a science fiction novel. There's a lot of world building involved and so on. The project is called St. Peter is Bored, and it is the kind of novel that's like I said, it's not describable in flap copy words, but it really is about the biggest issues we face as human beings. It is about heaven and hell and life and death. It is astonishing what Dan has done with this novel, with how hard he has worked, with everything he's got going in his professional life and his personal life. All he has accomplished with the Author Academy in the 2 terms I've worked with him is really incredible. And I've worked with several students at this point over the years through Carnegie. I've never seen anyone who has gone from such a point to being really, I told him last week, I think this can be published. I would love for him to see it through. I think he will see it through when we finish on his own terms, through the help of some of the people at Carnegie, probably. But he has done absolutely extraordinary work with St. Peter is Bored. The pages I'm going to read are, this is indicative of what this novel is. There are so many quirky scenes in this book, and this is one. In this scene, our hero, Peter, is at the gates of heaven, and he is having a concept meeting because there are a lot of office politics with this book as well. It is so clever how Dan uses office humor, office situations, and molds them on to literally heaven and purgatory. So in this scene, Peter is speaking to the Holy Trinity of all things, and they are giving him a pitch about what they need him to do. Peter is not liking it at all. And you'll see in these pages an echo of things I think that we deal with as Americans all the time. I have an office job. Our concept meetings at our office sound very similar to what St. Peter is having to deal with here. And your frustration when you have to do that is very reminiscent of what Peter is feeling when these when this scene ends. One of my oldest friends coughed, smiled, and raised his voice up an octave as he said, "It's not a big deal. You're doing a great job. We are proud of the work you have done and will continue to do. But 11 minutes per person might have been okay in the 15th century when you let a few people in each day. We have a different crop of people today. They want machines. They expect results. Hamburgers arrive at their doorsteps in minutes. A computer takes a picture of their face for them to enter buildings or countries or their cars. Every answer, real or fake, to every question is only a few clicks away. Nobody wants a line anymore, Pete. They're an impatient breed." Sonny closed the binder and looked straight at me. "And so we have a plan. You've turned us down before, but it's time." He pointed at a second binder, bigger than the first, held to the sky by the Holy Spirit. "We need you to think through the new project. The working title is The Gateways. We think this will help expedite onboarding of new Paradise residents, and it'll free you up to assist those in need and to examine other professional growth opportunities." I was done growing. Once the anniversary catalog no longer had specific gifts based on my tenure length, career progression ended. I couldn't even remember where I put the 4-slice toaster I got for my 1250th year of service. Gabe mentioned as well that the expediency and modernization built off the algorithms in Heaven Sent will provide great marketing content for his new digital-first team. I didn't spend a few thousand years to help an archangel spread gifts. I wanted to yell that the director of marketing could figure out his own ways to reach the masses, but instead I threw my hands into the air and promised I can move people along faster. No. Jesus stood up and walked around the desk. "I don't think that's the answer. We've seen some great work on Earth regarding automation. It's what they know, Pete. It's what we should do. It's the future." I was stunned. I worked harder than anyone I knew. Nobody else had to deal with thousands of people every day. I tried to argue for assistance and more hands for a long time. My department hadn't kept up with population growth, but they wanted only one entry point. "I'm sorry, Jesus, that the numbers don't show how committed I am to my position and to the organization." They all nodded sympathetically. My friend extended his arms, pointing to his co-leaders. "We know the numbers don't tell the whole story. You've been strident and forcing us to consider alternatives, but we didn't like your ideas. We thought you would figure it out and start moving people through. Unfortunately, we were wrong." I took the insult and smiled. I would shout into my pillow later, but I couldn't let them see me sweat. "You will spearhead the gateways, Pete. We have absolute faith in you, but you have to agree now, sight unseen." Of course, a leap of faith. "I accept," putting as much enthusiasm as I could gin up into it. He came up to me, hugged me, kissed both cheeks. "I knew you'd be up for this. It's what I told them all morning. This will be so exciting." I couldn't remember a day where Jesus wasn't telling me what to do. He always had instructions for me to follow. Everyone had to just follow. That was his thing. The other two remained still. His father was fast asleep, and the Holy Spirit had moved on to another pad of paper. So many notes for such a short meeting. I hope they didn't send out the minutes. I wouldn't read them anyway. But I did say, "Yes, sir, I'll get to work." I had no idea what this would mean. He returned to his seat and yelled one more time, "You have 1 week. Get it done." I was about to break the hereafter. So that's a section from St. Peter is Bored. It is, as I said, the imagination that Dan poured into this is really something. and I just can't wait to see where he goes. I told him last week that we have formed not only a working relationship through the Author Academy, but I really consider him a friend. He is a fantastic human being. I have told everybody I know I've really never met anybody as earnest, as kind as Dan is. You can see it in his face when you speak to him. He's such a kind person. And it turns out he is a really great writer as well. So I thank the Author Academy for allowing Dan and I to work together. And I wish Dan all the luck in the world.